All right. Well, what the hell? It is what it is. Stand by.
I had it and I lost it. And I'm going to try it again.
Tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show, as wet snow and rain depart, we get a couple of days of calm, but the next weather system is already putting its chess pieces on the board this evening, and it'll wind up as a major storm as it heads up the eastern seaboard into eastern Canada. Get ready because the winds will howl. That's all that and more on the Joe and Joe Weather Show, which is brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York. You still have to deal with winter tonight. If you've got the wet snow that melted on paved surfaces could refreeze tonight. So you might need salt or sand or Pelledo or mag ice pellets and flakes. Or if you're thinking of spring, which is not that far away, they're making the transition and they've got mulch, topsoil, gravel, everything you need to make your yard look the envy of the neighborhood. 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York. 631-756-1125 is the telephone number. And of course, we all know that the website is.
It's OmniTrueValue.com.
That it is. So I was watching on Turner Classic Movies because it's Oscar. It's 31 days of Oscar, which they do going into the Oscars, which are later this month. So I'm watching Ben-Hur, and after Ben-Hur, they're gonna run the sequel to Ben-Hur about his sister, Ben-Him,
Ben Him.
Ben-Him. And then this morning they had a movie from not too many years ago, Crouching. They had a movie from not too many years ago. You might remember, Joe. Was it Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon?
Yeah.
And no, that's what the name of the movie was. And I did see it when it came out. And thereafter, to me, it's known as Crouching Tiger, Hidden Plot because to this day, I have no clue what that movie was about, why it was such a why it was Oscar nominated the way it was. And I'm not a simpleton. I kind of get into these movies and the symbolism and the lighting and all the rest of it. And but that was something that just I just didn't get. So how much snow did you get? Speaking of not getting.
Two 2.6 inches. I had to make a number of measurements on the grass. If I
Mm-hmm.
tried to do it on my driveway, I probably wouldn't have ended up with more than an inch. And I'm surprised that I actually had, my blacktop driveway actually accumulated snow to the degree of about an inch. No big surprise on my deck, my wooden deck, which started accumulating almost immediately once the snow began just after 9 o'clock this morning. And yeah, it it is what it is. And now
But
everybody, of course, is
but there were at
talking
least.
about
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
everybody's talking about the next one that's coming on Saturday, and I hear more and more forecasters talking about it's going to start off as rain, but it's going to go to snow,
No,
and then the snow, and it may accumulate to
no,
blah 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 blah. And I'm saying,
no.
and you know what I'm saying, Joe? I from the get go this morning when I heard the first forecast for the weekend, nobody nobody is putting an emphasis on the wind, which I think is going to be
It's
the
the bigger
major player
deal.
for many of them.
No, the wind is
Yeah,
the bigger
yeah.
deal here. Look, if you're along the coast, what we're talking about here, first of all, this thing is moving like a rocket ship at 1,000 miles an hour. It's in North Carolina, and 6 hours later, it's southeast of Long Island or just very close to Long Island, and I mean, it's rocketing. It's going to rocket up very, very quickly. So what we're talking about here for Saturday for the immediate coast is whether we get a change at the end that maybe produces a burst of heavy snow that lasts for an hour or two, and that's it. Now, you start working your way up north and west, an hour or two becomes an hour or three, or 2 hours or 3 hours or four. Those areas are going to wind up snowing for a longer period of time. But it's still going to be a relatively short period of time in terms of accumulation. The wind is the bigger deal here. I mean, we're going to be gusting to over 50 miles an hour later Saturday afternoon and Saturday night, and there's probably going to be a slew of high wind warnings and wind advisories up and down the East Coast with this. So that's the bigger deal. I don't know. Oh, and by the way, because a few people will occasionally post this, not because the chat board knows not to do this now because you're not supposed to per our rules, but somebody left. I forgot the name of the person that left a comment, and I appreciate that you need to tell me that the local forecasters on television are saying things that are opposite of what I was saying. This was back 2 days ago, because now they're saying what we're saying. Just to be clear about this, I appreciate that you take the time to comment on the show. I really do. But I just want to let you know we don't care what other people are saying. Okay, we really don't. We don't. I don't watch. I never watch. I never look at a forecast before I make my own. Neither does Joe, and that's so that we could stay unbiased and we don't have other people's opinions bouncing in our heads, putting some doubt in our own minds in terms of what we're going to forecast. So I appreciate that you want to tell us what other people are forecasting. We don't care, so don't bother to tell us what other people are forecasting. Okay,
And
go on.
let me just also say one other thing here, and that is in regard to the 7-day outlooks, and especially those two stations in the New York market who will go nameless that issue a 10-day forecast outlook. P.S. The storm that we had today was not even on the radar as a snowmaker until Monday, I think, or maybe even, well, yeah, Monday. That was
Right.
when we first, that's when all of a sudden Wednesday turned out to be a day not of a chance of rain late in the day, or even a chance of rain, period, or even maybe a couple of showers. As the longer range outlooks, including my own, for example, was indicating through the end of last week into this weekend. And all of a sudden on Monday, I went upstairs and I said to Renata, I said, guess what? It looks like we're going to see some snow on Wednesday. And this storm ended up getting more prolific, if I may use that term. We certainly saw, I said an inch or two. It maybe was better to say 2 or 3 inches. And other places got, in Orange County, for example, they picked up in some cases 4 or 5 inches of snow.
Yeah.
But the point I'm trying to make is here was a significant storm that brought a significant amount of snow to much of the area, and it wasn't even mentioned as a snowstorm or potential snow until Monday, 2 days ago. And so that only goes to show what I've been saying all along, that maybe 5 days is about the limit of trying to go with a long range forecast, and certainly the absurdity of going 7 and especially 10 days out. I wonder if anybody 10 days ago had on their forecast saying that we were going to get what we got today. I don't think so. But, that's weather. Sometimes things come up within a matter of 48 or 60 hours that you don't see until they're virtually on top of you. This was a classic case of just such a storm.
Um, also, the fact that now on the opposite end of that equation, let's examine the short range and let's look at how the the NAM model, for example, had these relatively big amounts for Long Island, for central New Jersey, into southeastern Pennsylvania, uh, even as close as 12 hours before. Guess where the big snows were? Northern PA, okay, Northern PA, Northeast, up to the Albany area. Timothy Veltman
Right.
messaged me that he got over half a foot up there when the NAM model was barely giving them a couple of inches. And in fact, it's at a certain point in the very short range, it didn't even bring the precip that far north. So uh, this was a this was an odd duck in terms of how it turned out. And now, of course, we've got this animal for Saturday, and I'm looking around at different things, trying to gain some perspective here, Joe. I consulted with Mrs. Ann Sambles, for example, and Mrs. Ann Sambles, uh, because on Pivotal Weather they have not only the ensembles, but they also have the ensembles, the mean snow forecast maps and the mean precip maps with actual numbers. And I was actually a little bit surprised from the ensembles, the most recent ones coming out at 18Z, actually giving uh, several inches. Again, this is the average of all the models, and some of them are doing weird things in one direction, some of them are doing weird things in the other. But when you add all the members and divide it up, you come up with a few inches right along the immediate coast and 6+ going north and west. To me, I mean, I'm not. There's no way I'm gonna forecast something like that off the ensembles. I'm not a fan of the ensembles, as you know. But I think I just want to be a little. I'm going to be a little cautious here. I think the European, the operational European model run from this afternoon, from earlier today, and going back to yesterday and last night, certainly suggests that you have to at least acknowledge that there's the possibility of a quick change over to snow and maybe a burst of heavy snow on the backside that lasts a short period of time. You got the upper trough that's going to be swinging through, also that's going to energize it to a certain degree. So it will be what it will be. And upstate New York, up in central and northern New England, some places are going to get many inches out of this. Maybe some places could wind up with 8, 9, or 10. But this is not going to. I don't think they're going to wind up with many feet or anything like that. But this is going to be a very interesting storm. And yes, for the area, especially for the area that we generally cover, which is that geographic zone from eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England, up the Hudson Valley down to maybe Maryland and Delaware, the wind is going to be really the bigger deal here.
Absolutely, I believe you're absolutely true on that. I think that's going to be the main concern, especially if you live in an area that tends to lose power when the wind goes over a certain speed, like yours truly. So I don't want that to happen, especially with the temperatures dropping in the aftermath of the passage of the storm. But we shall see what we shall see for. And of course, that means if I have to pull the generator out, I know I have enough gas, at least for a day or so. I really do not want to go to a gas station and purchase more gas for my generator in the throes of what we're into right now concerning gas. So I would think right now, Joe, you're absolutely right. I think in terms of looking at everything, rain, snow, wind. Wind is up here on my list of worrisome items or problematic items here. Snow is about here, and rain is over here. In fact, I'm rooting for the rain to help get rid of what fell out there today, and a bit of fog as well.
What do you think on the wind speeds with this?
Well, I think we could, I mean, in most areas, I'm thinking that wind speeds could be sustained or steady late Saturday into Sunday, 25 miles per hour, and some occasional gusts at the coast, maybe approaching 60, even inland, maybe 40 or 50. And that's not going to be for a short time. I mean, we had wind the other night, and it lasted for about, what, 6, 8 hours. There was some significant blowing of those winds, and then they took the wind advisory down and everything kind of calmed back to normal. I don't think this is going to be a quickie. This is going to be a long duration event, which could last from late on Saturday through Saturday night and through much of the daylight hours of Sunday.
And it won't just be the coast, by the way. It'll be in coast and inland areas are going to wind up having to
Oh,
deal
yeah.
with this.
Yes.
Excuse
There's going
me.
to be a fierce northwesterly wind. And yeah, the inland spots, like, for example, where I am, I know that if I go over 45 mile per hour in gusts, that I'm in serious problem or serious difficulty of maintaining my power, because there's a history of when we hit that magic number 45, that the lines are going to be either causing some flickering or maybe just going down completely. So that's what's in the back of my mind for this weekend. And as far as being near the coast, where there's less friction, if you will, that wind blowing over Long Island Sound and then out across Long Island, for example, and out over the ocean, we could see winds 55, maybe in excess of 60 miles an hour. That's the opinion right now, and we're telling you this more than 3 days in advance.
By the way, how much is gas up by you, just for laughs?
I have not had the nerve. Well, first of all, in order for me to see it, the nearest gas station is 1.2 miles from my house. Now, I could, if I felt like it, but I didn't feel like it today in the snow, I could have walked down or actually up my street and then made a right-hand turn and headed down toward where the gas station is and seen what the prices were. But I really don't want to. I don't want to use my car to drive, the 1.2 miles and waste that little bit of gas. I'm the last price I saw, Joe, I purchased gas early. I do mean early on Saturday morning. Had to wait a little while because others were buying it too. At that time, it was $3.99
Okay.
for 87 octane for regular gas per gallon. $3.99. I'm guessing from what I've been watching on television that it's probably on the order of what, 430, 450. Who knows?
Yeah,
Who
I
knows?
pay the nearest gas station for me is 6 miles on my when you drive toward Pixley. But there's more gas stations in Pixley, so there's a little bit of competition, but there isn't much competition going on right now from that respect. Uh, what did I see? Because I paid 388 on Saturday also, and I topped my tank, and I still got more than 3 quarters in my car, my truck. Uh, I think 40. I would say the average price here is about 410, 409. Okay. Anyway, I was just wondering because gas
The
is
most
lower here than it is everywhere else. So
the most I've ever paid for a gallon of gas, a gallon of regular, was $4.11 back in right after it was about a few days after Sandy in 2012. Everybody here, everybody, even the gas stations were having a problem with electricity. There were some gas stations, however, nearby me on Route 6. And I remember waking up one morning and hearing on the radio that if you live in the vicinity of, and it was like, I think, Shrub Oak or Mohegan Lake, the BP has just gotten a delivery. And I went down to that station, and the line went all the way back to Poughkeepsie to try to get gas. And then, like a block away, there was a Valero. Have you ever heard of that
yeah,
gas,
yeah.
Valero?
Hmm.
But the Valero, I saw the tanker truck was coming in to deliver a fresh batch of fuel to the Valero station. I immediately got behind the truck, stopped the car, jumped out, and I asked the proprietor of the station. I said, you getting gas? Is this will you be able to fill me up when you're delivering? He said, yeah. I waited like 20 minutes behind that truck, and then when it was finally my turn to get gas, I paid $4.11 for regular.
Mm.
Now that was obviously there was no crises like there was today, but what was happening then was good old-fashioned price gouging. They were doing it at Valero and all the other stations, I'm sure, on Route 6, the American way, as all capitalists love to do when they know they got you in a corner, and they had me in a corner. So I was so happy. I was so happy that I found a station that I could get gas out, and I was so happy I didn't even think twice to pay $4.11, which I think was like nearly twice as much as what the regular amount would have been. I got it. I got the gas. Um, Everybody got electricity within the next few days, and magically, Joe, the price of 411 went rapidly down again. But like I said, when they know they got you, they got you.
Well, it's the law of supply and demand. If you demand it,
Yes,
they'll supply it, but you got to pay it. All right, enough.
exactly.
Enough. Otherwise, we're going to start talking about the 70s when we used to have to stand. We used to be in gas lines that were miles long with odd and even days with license plates, if you remember those days.
Right.
So yeah, we don't
Oh,
want. So
yes.
if you think it's bad, it's not. You're still able to drive up to the gas station and get gas, not like it was then. You'd have to get up. You would have to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to get online for when the gas station opened up at 7 o'clock, 7 a.m. or 8 a.m. or whenever it was. That lasted for months on end. So anyhow, enough. Weather-wise, let's take a look at what's happening here across the U.S. So we have still some winter weather advisories up in the Hudson Valley. Albany finally woke up and actually put some advisories up for Dutchess County and for the counties in western Massachusetts and points north in southern Vermont and New Hampshire. To the west, as this next round of energy. I saw Ruthless Goat was on bragging about his foot of snow that he had in Loveland, Colorado, and the snow weenies were all just gritting their teeth in jealousy. But there it is. In Colorado, still have a lot of winter weather advisories and a couple of winter storm warnings. We have winter storm warnings up for a few counties in eastern Colorado and then across northern Kansas into Missouri, southernmost Nebraska under some winter storm warnings. We have winter weather advisories down in northeastern New Mexico and into Arizona, and wind advisories in southern Nevada, southern California, and eastern Arizona. So that's part of the energy that's coming east with this next round of weather that we're going to be seeing coming into the eastern United States. And that's going to be for Saturday. So in the meantime, there's we got 2 days of quiet, Joe. And I'm going to get the satellite loop. By the way, I apologize for last night because I don't know what's going on here with respect to my internet connection. It's been stormy here up through through this morning. So I imagine, and I know the internet here was down for a good part of the night because when I got up this morning, it wasn't working. I'm still seeing, and I don't know why, but I'm still seeing that there's some issues going on at the moment. So if you're, wind up buffering, I apologize. Hopefully this will finally get resolved when the weather quiets down. But here we go with the moisture coming out of the northeast and moving away. And then you look back in the west and you start to see the energy that's coming down. We're also going to be looking up toward Canada because we're going to see energy coming down from the north with a very, very sharp upper trough that's going to put this storm together along the east coast on Saturday.
And again, people have been, somebody, I think it was Tom Contino on the chat board asking me if I had put together a snow map, a first look snow map for Saturday.
No, I
Tom,
didn't
no,
either.
I mean, it's too many things have to fall into place. It just gets rather confusing. Wait another day at least for the first call map, and certainly now, Joe. Here's a question. Might as well settle this right now. Are we or are we not on for Friday?
I think we could
Or you
say,
want to wait one more
well,
day?
look, actually, this works out well because if we do, if we do Friday, then we should take Sunday off because I got my grandkids coming on Sunday, so um, at the very least, we should move the Sunday show to Sunday evening if you're okay with that.
Right.
Okay, so maybe we'll
Well,
move it to
yeah. I
Sun.
don't. I,
Let's move it to Sunday evening for Sunday. But yeah, maybe we should do a show on Friday ahead of all of this. I think that's probably a smart thing. It might be the last. It's probably going to be the last one as we you know march through the calendar and head into spring because the pattern longer range doesn't look all that promising for snow lovers. So this may be it.
no, you're absolutely right. In fact, on the CPC, the Climate Prediction Center,
If
and oh yes,
you can you
so
can
it's like
share if you
so I
want.
can't share. I can't share. Well, I haven't pulled up. I did look at it an hour or so ago. CPC is going for like 70 or 80% probability of above normal right here in our area, Joe. They kind of like blocked out the immediate New York City metropolitan area. I'll try to bring it up so you can talk for a little bit, and
All
I'll
right.
get that map
So on the radar
settled
this
up here.
evening, we've got the last of this mess is moving away to the northeast, and today was a perfect example for the warm ground enthusiasts and the sun angle lovers of what can happen in March. But you know what? In some places where it snowed hard enough, it didn't, especially up to the north, it really didn't matter. So again, intensity always trumps these the sun angle and the quote unquote warm ground.
You were absolutely right. I was doing some people on the chat board says Joe Rayo's throwing a fit, but it was just my point was with all of that omega, I said that between noon and 2 o'clock today, that would be when you were going to see it start snowing big time with the big flakes. And I even mentioned, even though it did not happen, a rumble or two of thunder or a flash of lightning. Didn't get the lightning, didn't get the thunder, but Joe, as the snow was coming on down, up until that time, the snow was coming down, nothing accumulating on my blacktop driveway. I'm saying to myself, good. This is what I like. I like to look at the snow. I like it clinging to the grass and the trees and everything else, but I don't like it when it starts clinging to my driveway. Well, I must tell you, by 1 or 2 o'clock, it was coming down very hard, and all of a sudden, my blacktop was beginning to disappear behind a thin coating of white. And I picked up on the driveway. I probably picked up about an inch or an inch and a half. Still had to scrape it because Renata wasn't coming home until 5 o'clock. I didn't want her to come home, and try to come up the driveway with snow on it. So I had to go out and scrape. But I said I just shook my head and I said, there you go. Just like what Mr. Chiaffi said yesterday, intensity will trump high sun angle and warm ground. I mean, the ground it stayed warm enough until that snow started coming down to beat the band at like 1 or 2 o'clock this afternoon, and then I saw that I won't say I was in trouble, but I saw that looks like I'm going to have to go out and scrape in spite of everything
Yep.
that has come up until now, and indeed that was the case.
Yep. Even on Long Island, when I woke up this morning at 5 a, it was a little bit before 6. So I looked at the 5 a.m. temperatures on Long Island were still in the mid to upper 30s, and they managed to see accumulations mostly on cold surfaces, but in some of the less traveled roadways where it snowed hard enough. There was even some snow there and in some parking lots. And by the way, I'll be curious to find out how much snow Poughkeepsie got because they were a moderate snow for about 5 or 6 hours in a row. So I'll be darn curious to see what their final total is. All right, let's go back to the radar and take a look at what's happening. So, of course, this first system is winding down now as it moves away to the northeast. In the southeast, we've got some showers and some thunderstorms going on in Florida, off the coast, south and east of north and east of Tampa. I'm sorry, north and west of Tampa, St. Pete, and going back into the Florida Panhandle. You see it there, and into southern Georgia and coastal South Carolina, seeing some showers and thunderstorms. And the Storm Prediction Center, which I saved right up here. The Storm Prediction Center has a slight risk of severe weather tonight, running from South Carolina, coastal South Carolina, going inland by a fair distance, by the way, south and east. Trying to give a quick refresh here. Then I'm going to get rid of this map so that maybe it'll help the broadcast here. Okay, here's an update. So they just updated this, and they've reduced everything to a marginal risk right around that area that we saw off the Florida coast. So the slight risk now is gone, and just the marginal risk remains. For tomorrow, the Storm Prediction Center has. Hello. Come on. Oh, this is so ridiculous that it should take this long. God. You think I was on a dial-up line. I mean, really? Come on. How many people go to the Storm Prediction Center's website that it okay, thank you. Lord have mercy. The government servers are not the fastest servers in the world. I mean, I know some of this is my doing, but still. Okay, can you finish the map? All right, there you go. So for tomorrow, there's this area of marginal risk in northern into parts of the northern part of central Florida. Let's put it like that. And then we're going to go to a slight risk of severe weather, I believe, on day 3. So this covers Friday into Saturday. Florida Panhandle to northeast Florida, southern Alabama, the southern half of Georgia, about half of South Carolina into southeastern North Carolina in slight risk with marginal risk extending further north and a chance of thunderstorms going all the way up to Route 195 in New Jersey. And we've got stuff on the long range too for day 4. So on day 4, which is for Saturday into Sunday, that map I just showed you for day 3 was Friday into Saturday. Day 4 is Saturday into Sunday, a 15%, so that's a slight risk already being, and this was on here yesterday, from north central Florida up the coast through Georgia, South and North Carolina into a small portion of southeastern Virginia. So just bear that in mind here. This is from 7 a.m. Saturday until 7 a.m. on Sunday. So let me kill this map. I'm going to kill this map. Hopefully that'll
Why
speed
do I
things
think that
up.
we're going to? Why do I think that that on Saturday that we being New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, or whatever, that with this impending system on Saturday, that we will sneak into either a marginal risk, or I wouldn't even rule out the possibility of a slight risk for us on Saturday. I don't understand why they just, unless they're saying that to themselves, like, well, the predictability further north of the Virginia Capes is too low as of this moment. But I would do it. I mean, if you're gonna cover Central Florida up to the Capes, Virginia Capes, with the chance for at least a 15% chance of severe, why don't you go all the way and go all the way up into our neck of the woods as well? We'll
We'll
see.
see. WPC, and this takes us to Saturday evening. So this is a new map that they put out a little bit before, for about 3:30 this afternoon. So for the first time, they're extending 1 to 5% probabilities of at least 2 inches down to the coast. The dark blue is a 40% chance of at least 2, and that's up in northwest New Jersey, not into south. Well, I don't even know what you call that. It's not the western part of southeastern Pennsylvania. God, but you can see it there. How the dark blue line goes down. It's very, very sharp. The gradient from it's not that many miles from 10%
That's
probability
Amish.
to
That's
50%.
Amish country.
Right. I'm sorry. Yeah, near Lancaster, so it's out in Amish country. And of course, you see where the probabilities of 50% or greater, northeastern Pennsylvania, westward into western PA, eastern Ohio, and then going all the way up into upstate New York. Let's look at the probability of at least 4 as of this forecast from earlier. And they have a probability of at least 4 and a rather high probability of at least 4 in northern PA, western New York. Well, actually, a good chunk of upstate New York has got probabilities of at 80% or higher for at least 4. And the 50% line is in northeastern Pennsylvania for 4 inches. And they even have the 1 to 5% line for 4 touching New York City down to about Wilmington, Delaware, and points south and west. So obviously that's a minuscule chance, but the fact that they have it at all is probably is somewhat meaningful. So at least they think that maybe the southern end will get close for a changeover before ending. And now with a probability of at least 8, and that covers northern Pennsylvania and a good chunk of New York State at 50 to 60% or higher for at least 8, particularly up in the Adirondacks, Joe. They got a big area there of an 80% chance for at least 8, and we might as well click on the 12. And they've got a 40 to 50% 40 to 60% probability of at least a foot up in the Adirondacks. So those areas are going to get their snow. I don't think it'll go much higher than that, but they're going to get their snow out of this, no matter what everybody else gets.
Yeah, Andy Gregorio would be probably a very busy person looking at the probability of, of a major snowfall this late in the season. We're coming up now on what? We're only going to be about a week away from the official astronomical start of spring. But isn't this always the case when you get this close to spring and you always get one last big bluff? And this looks like a bluff.
Yeah.
And not only is it coming just about a week before spring, it's also coming on the weekend that we have to push forward, Joe, in our clocks, which you and I both despise. I
Despise,
despise it.
despise. All right, we got the new European, so let's see what the new European is going to be telling us with all of this. Now, tomorrow we've got a wave that's off the southeast coast. That's going east, so we'll get rid of that, and then that goes out. So tomorrow's fine. Friday is fine. We've got, the temperatures are probably going to make a run for 40s to near 50 tomorrow, and probably upper 40s to maybe some low and mid 50s on Friday, depending on your location and how much cloud cover you have. Now, here comes the next low, and you see it there. Now, just again, a reminder, when you look at the European, they don't have rain and frozen precip. This is just showing total accumulated rain, average precipitation rate. Okay. And so it doesn't know it doesn't know what's rain and what's snow. So that green that you see in Ohio and southern Indiana and in northwest PA and western New York, that's obviously going to be snow. And the low is in eastern Georgia, moves onto the south and North Carolina border, about halfway inland. Then it has it, Joe, in southeastern corner of Virginia by Saturday. This is at 10 o'clock Saturday morning. I love that we have this in 3-hour increments. So let's see where it is on the next jump. All right, so it's a little bit further east on this run, Joe. It's not by much, but it's a little bit further east. It's at 40 and a half. I'm sorry, at 40, 40 north and 72 and a half west. The low pressure is 979. There's a 979 low in that position, and you can already see how tight the gradient is in New Jersey and back into Pennsylvania, and clearly all the way down into the Carolinas, and how the cold air, Joe. I get down to a 5. They only out to 72 hours here, so far on the new European, but you excuse me, you get the idea. I got the fireplace going here because it's cold today.
Bless you.
Thank you. It was very raw today. So in terms of what this translates, and I took a look as far as snow amounts were concerned on the European. I believe it had was giving a couple of inches along the coast and higher amounts inland. I'll pull up the specifics a bit later on, but because I don't want to show the map unless they still haven't responded to me, by the way, which is just outrageous. Now here's the
What you ought to do, Joe. What you ought to do is when you send them something again, the next time, refer to yourself as Joseph Chiaffi Esquire.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, of course.
They'll come very close, and they'll get back to you real fast, I think,
Now,
in that regard.
Now here's the upper trough as it swings eastward across the Great Lakes. Still got that positive tilt to it. This is at Saturday at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So with the lows just southeast of Long Island, the upper trough is still pretty far back to the west. And then as the upper trough sharpens and starts to move eastward, it's still got a little bit of a positive tilt there by Saturday evening, and that's as far out as I have. But the point being that if it's a little bit more progressive, in other words, if that positive tilt holds on for a little while longer, you could still wind up going, pushing that surface look and wind up being a little bit further to the east. And that could make a big difference for somebody in terms of what happens at the changeover before it ends.
Well, we shall see. We're still 3 days away. As I said, I think tomorrow we'll certainly have a very good idea. But it looks like a really nasty, as Alan Casper used to refer to in just such a setup as this, showery rains, showery, heavy, windswept rains on Saturday to kick off the day, with I think some lightning and thunder, most definitely. And then after that thing winds on through, we'll see how the winds turn into the northwest, how quickly the temperatures drop, and whether or not we do see any kind of significant. There may be so much rain that has fallen. Do you think this could be? No, I don't think so.
What?
I was going to ask about the question about a flash freeze, but I think
Well,
for us to get a
don't.
flash to get a flash freeze, we'd need to have, as I said a day or two ago, kind of a teleconnection between the surface winds and the upper level winds. That will eventually happen, but probably when that does happen, it may not happen until like late Saturday night, and by that time, I would assume most of the precip is going to be all but done, right?
All
Or
right. Well, let's look at the temperature 72 hours. Let's go back to the European, and I don't know if I can get a sounding from the European on. I don't know if he's got. Oh, he's got soundings here too. So let's look at the European sounding because the European's the colder model. So let's take a look. So this is 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I'll pull up the sounding for New York City. And at Joe, if the European is right, at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, the temperature is still 38. So any changeover obviously would probably be occurring after that. It's above freezing at that point. It's above freezing all the way up to the 800 millibar level. So obviously the changeover hasn't occurred then. So let's go to 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So at 4 o'clock in the
don't you love the
afternoon,
don't you love the fact that Mr. Cohen, Mr. Levi Cohen of Tropical Tidbits, has done this for us for the
oh yeah,
European,
oh yeah,
that 3 hour increment. It's
yes,
wonderful.
yes, absolutely. Um, Now at 4 o'clock, the temperature has dropped 6 degrees to 32. Okay, that's at 4 o'clock. And at 7 o'clock, with the upper trough getting very, very close, I'll pull up the 7 o'clock one. Let's see. And at 7 o'clock, Joe, it's 27. So,
That's a pretty damn good drop. I don't know if it's
yeah.
in flash freeze category, but
Well, you know what?
it's a good.
No, I was just going to say, if the precip, if it changes over to snow, let's say it's still raining at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Let's say it changes over to snow, and the precip doesn't pull out until say 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So sometime in that 4 hours, you're going to go below freezing. Even whatever moisture's around is going to wind up freezing anyway. So it's liable to be there's liable to be some of that going on, if not at the coast, maybe just inland of the coast, because that's a 9 degree drop in 6 hours.
Right.
And by 10 o'clock, which of course the precip is long gone at that point, at 10 o'clock, if we pull up the sounding on the European, it's 24 in New York City by 10 o'clock. So we lose another 3 degrees. Uh, Again, assuming that the European is right with its with the cold air, and the GFS is probably a little bit warmer because of what it's doing. So here's the GFS, which can go a little further with all of this. And you can see the GFS also with that positively tilted upper trough that stays positive longer, which accounts for the fact that the 18Z run was a little bit further east than the 12Z run. Not by a lot, but it was noticeable when I looked at it. And you can see it here, the low now in southeastern Virginia at 7 a.m. It was also much faster. By 1 p.m., the low goes from west of Norfolk, Joe, to Boston in 6 hours. And then after that, it's up in New Brunswick. So, it moves it up like a rocket ship. But
Right.
we'll have to see. These are getting minor adjustments. It's going to make a difference for somebody. I would say if you're Northwest New Jersey, if you're in Northeast Pennsylvania, if you're in the Catskills, if you're in the Hudson Valley north of 84, and especially if you're north and west of I-90, um, you want to pay attention to this from the standpoint of snow because you're going to wind up getting a sizable amount out of this. That is cold air. That is very cold air that's coming in behind it. And by the way, that cold air impact is going to go all the way down, uh, all the way down into northern Florida here with this long fetch north northwest winds blowing right down because of how deep the upper trough is and how far south it is.
Yeah, yeah. And now a lot of people on the chat board have been talking about, isn't this the anniversary of the superstorm of 93, 29 years ago? No, it's not precisely. That was the 12th and 13th of March. So it's this storm will be coming just a little early, a little earlier for the anniversary. Let's see.
It's on the
This
12th.
we're talking about Saturday. Saturday's on the 12th. Yeah, so it's about a day earlier. But in case you're wondering, and in case you've heard about this storm but have never experienced it, maybe you're not old enough to remember this. Let me share with all of you the front page of the New York Times. This was from Sunday, March 14th, 1993. And as you can see, it was a pretty big thing to cover much of the front page. Storm paralyzes East Coast, snow covers the South, 33 killed, activities halted, a humbled Northeast hunkers down anew. This storm system in 1993 was called, long before Sandy came knocking at our door, this storm was referred to as the storm of the century and the superstorm. It provided snow as far south as central Alabama, all the way up to central Maine, and in some cases along the Appalachians, I think it produced as much as 40 inches of snow. It also produced record low barometric pressure readings in many spots in the eastern part of the United States. In some cases, the barometer going down to something like 28.1 inches, something ridiculous like that. It was an amazing storm. And Mr. Chiaffi and I, we both remember this because
I had to
I
work.
got into News 12. Well, I got into News 12 Long Island at like 5 or 4 o'clock in the morning. It was a Saturday, and I was there until about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Then Norm DeVoskin took over, and then for whatever reason, they called you, I think, late that night to relieve you.
Yes,
What
because
did they go?
I had to go.
They went live. They went live right into the wee hours of the morning. Is that what
Yeah, if
happened?
I remember correctly, I had to go in. I went in later in the afternoon. I did the. I worked. I worked the evening and a little bit past that. I actually just brought up. I got the surface map for that. The surface maps for that. So, it,
Okay, so I will
so you
unshare here.
unshare, and
Yes,
I just went while you were talking with the New York Times there. I was bringing this map up, but this is what the surface looked like. Now, for the warm ground theorists and the sun angle theorists, I would just point out that in areas in the South the day before, and God knows what was going into this, but it was well up into the 40s and low 50s in a lot of places in northern Alabama. Well, it was a little colder there in northern Alabama, but in northern Georgia and heading over into western South Carolina, this was the air mass. I remember having a conversation with somebody pointing out the fact that the high that was coming down that you see here up north of North Dakota actually was Arctic air. And we had that Arctic air was spreading out as this low, and you see it down in the Gulf. It's a pretty for the Gulf of Mexico in the wintertime. That's a fairly wrapped up low that showed up there. I mean, you don't see this too often. You usually see waves that are 1,008, maybe 1,006 or 1,005. Sometimes they get down close to 1,000. But this little baby was already down in the. This was already down to an 8. I think that's an 89 low that was being indicated
right.
there, if I'm reading it correctly. And let me just bring this map a little higher so I can move it to the next map. So at 0Z, you had an 89 low continuing to progress to the northeast. Then it's an 86. It's a 986 low. I mean, that pressure could almost support a strong tropical storm or even a minimal Category 1 hurricane. And that low winds up going into the Florida Panhandle as a 75 low, Joe, a 975 low on the Florida Panhandle. this is like a generational event to see a
Right.
75
Right.
low there. And meanwhile, that Arctic air, that high, the Arctic air that was over the Great Lakes and into the plains is starting to spread into the Northeast. And we're seeing it, because it wasn't overly cold in the Northeast ahead of this. But it really didn't matter because this low was so wrapped up that it just pulled all that Arctic air into it. And here we have a 973 low in southeastern Georgia. So all that cold air with the 1034 high that was up in Minnesota just got drawn in. And I know you probably can't see it on if you're watching this on your phone, unless you're seeing it on the big screen. But you see a lot of three dots there up in Pennsylvania and down into Virginia. That's all moderate to heavy snow. This is Saturday morning. And now at 10 o'clock Saturday morning, we've got a wrapped up low in central South Carolina. I can't see what the pressure is on this, uh, but it's pretty wrapped up. And I see a 76, a 960, a 968 low right along the Carolina coast near Cape Hatteras. And I do remember, by the way, the big debate going into this the days before was the track and whether it was going to be just offshore or just inland, and it wound up being just inland. 960 low, 960 in southeastern Virginia, and
Right.
that was what 37 years ago, 39 years ago.
39.
I'm
39.
I've never.
Next year will be 40th anniversary.
This was a one and
That's
oh.
scary, Joe.
I know.
That's scary. I don't know about you. I say that, to me, this event was like maybe, oh, yeah, about 15, 20 years ago, 40 years ago next year. And it's so fresh, I'm sure, in both of our memories. It was,
Oh yeah.
oh, I'll tell you what was scary. The day before on Friday, I'm driving in my car and I'm listening to WCBS News Radio 880. And all of a sudden they broke in with the and they say, oh, it's an emergency broadcast test or whatever. And then you hear, I think, Wayne Cabot, who was just starting out in radio back then, and he's on in the mornings now on CBS. He said, this is not a test. This is not a test. And like, what is it? Nuclear war or whatever? No, this was an announcement using the emergency broadcast system to alert everybody of the impending storm that was coming our way the following day and how serious it was going to be with the winds and the rain and the snow and the sleet and everything else. And like, you thought it was Armageddon. And
Yeah.
in a way it was, because it was a generational type storm. This is why they referred to it as the superstorm, the storm of the century. And that was an amazing, and it just goes to show you also, when you think about the blizzard of 88, which was also in the month of March, in fact, it was very much the same date. It seems like this is a magic time, Joe, for weather enthusiasts. If you want to, seems like if you were hoping for or looking for a massive storm, the time around the 10th, the 12th, the 14th of March, that's the time. It looks like this year, nature's going to cooperate by providing. I'm not saying a super storm. I'm not saying an Armageddon, but it's going to provide us with a very important storm here for this coming weekend, this coming Saturday.
Right. And in those 39 years, we've never seen another 960 low down in the Carolinas. Not
No,
no. This was a and also by the way, uh, uh, it was one of the few storms that was actually picked up in the long range because we did have.
right.
I think we had the GFS going out to 240 hours at that point, if I remember correctly. And
Remember those?
I
Remember
think
those maps we used to get on the old print machine.
yeah,
and,
yes.
and it was from WSI. Yeah, you're right.
Right.
I
And
remember that.
if the paper jammed, you were really screwed because you couldn't get
Oh,
there's no way to get it resent. But I think the European was around at that time too. So if I remember correctly, I think it was.
yeah,
So it was one of those times where the models showed the thing in the long range and carried it all the way through, and that's only happened a handful of times in these last 39 years. It happened in the blizzard of '96, where I remember the GFS picking it up in the long range, and it had it every, virtually every run, and then it just got, did really a great job, really a good job in picking it up. Mark Bogret hitting super chat tonight. Thank you, Mark. That's a new name on the chat board, and welcome to our YouTube channel here. If you're watching and you're new to the YouTube channel, welcome aboard, and you can subscribe to my YouTube channel by using your Gmail account. This way, you get notifications every time the Joe and Joe Weather Show is on, which is usually on Sundays from 11 a.m. We do it Sunday morning and Monday through Thursday at 7:30. Although there'll probably be some schedule maneuvering because we were talking at the beginning that we're going to maybe do a show on Friday going into the Saturday storm, and that we may move the Sunday show to Sunday evening. So just bear that in mind. And Leon Probitsky just hit super chat. Thank you, Leon. Most
Yes.
appreciated there. Um, so look, we're going to do a little long range here. So for those of you who are listening to the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, and some of you others may see a quick commercial break at this point. And when the commercial's done, we'll be on the long range. So just sit a while. The rest of you just be patient, and we'll switch over to the long range maps. And that's not it. And that's not it. This is what happens when I try something new.
See, Tom Contino is asking questions, Joe, like the models came in on paper? Were there no PCs?
Oh, good. He's not. Is he seriously asking that question?
Well, I think he's making reference to
Yeah,
1993.
there were no. Well, no, there were not.
We did.
There were some. No, I had a laptop at the time. I think I had my first laptop
I mean,
at the time.
I mean,
There were
we,
PCs,
I mean,
but they were very primitive, very primitive.
we couldn't get them, or at least that was about the point when we were just getting the ability to get this from our home, which like blew me away. Like,
Yeah.
we always had to trudge somewhere, like to the TV station or to the weather office where I worked or whatever. And now to actually, in fact, I think you were the one, Joe, who pointed out the mystical, the magical methodology. It was right about this time where you could actually go to a specific site and get the new LFM on your own computer at home. And I think that I remember I said, "You're kidding me." He says, "Oh no, you could do it. So go ahead and foos away."
Yes. Who's away? The mice will play. Uh,
Yes.
all right. So let's do a look. Let's look at the long range and see what's going on. Yes, there was snow on the 384 hour. Do we care? No, we don't. Uh, so, um, so here we go. Uh, we're gonna lose. By the way, back a number of days ago, we were looking at the long range, showing that the polar vortex on the stratosphere was going to do a double split, or at least that's what the models were showing. Well, the first split happened, but then it model completely backed off on the idea of a second split. So here's our trough for this weekend. You can see how sharp it is, and it's all being driven by a low way up in northern Hudson Bay, and that's a long wave. I mean, that goes all the way from Hudson Bay down to Louisiana and into Florida. We've seen this a couple of times during this past winter, these big long wave troughs. Then that lifts out, and the cold air just kind of retreats up into Canada. There's no blocking at all. In fact, we go into a ridge position here, Joe. By the time we get to the weekend of March 19th and 20th, a ridge here in the eastern part of the United States, and then going into the long range. Now it gets a little blocky toward the end, but guess what? The model's been doing that on and off for the last week, and it never gets beyond day 14. So it's always in the last few frames that you start to see a little bit of blockiness with higher pressures from Scandinavia building into Greenland. But it's been trying to do that for the better part of the last 7 or 8 days, and it never seems to progress beyond day 14 or 15. So I'm thinking let's ignore the blocky look toward the end and just kind of focus on the fact that after this trough pulls out, there really is no connection to Arctic air, and you're going to need it as you get toward the latter part of March and going into April. You need some sort of a connection from up there in order to bring down enough cold air to produce any kind of snow. particularly in the coastal plain. The setup has to be perfect, and I'm just not seeing that here in the long range at all. So at least
Oh well.
at least after this big storm, we can next week will be a bit more quiet. Probably the emphasis will start to turn towards severe weather, as you do
Well,
have a
if you go to my if you share now, we'll go to my my screen. I'm sharing the I mentioned this earlier, the CPC, the Climate Prediction Center outlook, the 6 to 10 day outlook,
okay.
and this does not bode well if you know soak up whatever winter you can get your hands on this coming Saturday and Saturday night, folks, and whatever snow you can get you, because this does not spell out snow by any stretch of the imagination. This 6 to 10 day outlook, which is valid from the 15th through the 19th of this month, the 15th, of course, that is a week from, well, it's next Tuesday. So next Tuesday to a week from Saturday, that time frame. And take a look here now, Joe. Here's near normal as we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It looks like right here in this of our neck of the woods, here in the Northeast, Mid-Atlantic area, something like an 80 to 90% chance or probability of above normal. So it would not be at all surprising if during this time frame in our area we saw temperatures once again soar to or maybe even above 70. It's going to be a nice big fat warm up again, starting again about the middle and latter part of next week into the following weekend, not this weekend, but the following weekend. And if you're wondering about precipitation for this same time frame, here you go. Below normal over the northern plains and the western Great Lakes, and near normal for us. Somehow or another, we are able to carve out, and the climate prediction boys and girls have put a near normal for us. Meanwhile, inland here above, but not overly above normal in terms of probability for precipitation, and also below normal, continuing very dry. You know, they started off the winter season like gangbusters with amazing amounts of rain and snow across California and into portions of Nevada and Arizona. And then all of a sudden, it was as if in January, somebody turned the spigot and shut everything off. They were actually hopeful that the drought situation might be alleviated to some degree. But ever since then, we have seen below normal precipitation and drought-like conditions, and it looks like that's going to continue into the middle and latter part of this month across a broad swath of California, Nevada, especially so for lower California, southern Nevada, and on into Arizona, and below normal probabilities extending into central sections of Texas as well. So that is how that's how the CPC sees things for the next 6 to 10 days. You're wondering about 8 to 10 days, more bad news, because it still has through the 23rd of March above normal probabilities of temperatures, again, well above normal, not as much as on the 6 to 10, but still above normal. And as far as precipitation is concerned, during that time frame, 8 to 14 days out, now we're in the above normal category. So basically, after we get through this weekend, count on a rise toward above normal to even much above normal temperatures and near to above normal precipitation. After this weekend, the next round of significant precipitation may very well be more rain than anything else. Joe.
Yes. I was trying to do some quick math on the European when you got to be if you're looking at snow maps, it's tough when you have some snow being at the beginning and then in the same sequence. You look at you got to subtract out what's at the beginning to those other amounts, and my brain was just not grasping it. So I was trying to find some 24-hour snowfall forecast maps, and there's a way to get it, but I was not able to figure it out. So with respect to the European and the GFS. Anyway, I just wanted to mention that. Kylo Tech on the chat board, Joe, says, "Good evening, fellas. Was in South America last little bit, but he says hello, and he enjoyed the little snow that he saw today. Well, welcome, because it's summertime in South America, or will soon be summertime in South America. No, right? No, it is
No,
summertime.
it is something.
Right. I'm sorry.
It's heading for fall
It'll see
now.
for autumn. Yes.
Yes.
Welcome. See, you got folks from all over the place that watch the Joe and Joe weather show. And we've got 112 likes, which is great. Thank you very much for those of you who hit the like button tonight. Um, and of course, those of you who hit Super Chat tonight, thank you. Joe, you still have two questions left from Briller Jeopardy last night from Hitchcock that we didn't get to because of my technical issues.
Okay, so I
So
will
we could
get to
finish
them.
that off.
Yes, yes, I
I was
will.
doing quite well last night, too. Well,
Oh, you were doing wonderfully. You were doing perfect.
so we have to get to those last
So
two
yes,
questions.
yes. So here we go. So the last two questions. So we talked about did we get to this true or false? An avian hospital was built on the
Yes.
set of the movie The Bird. True.
Yes.
Okay, so we mentioned that. Okay, so what movie featured the first flushing toilet?
I'm going to say I'm thinking of the bathroom scenes in North by Northwest. I don't know if I remember them flushing a toilet in North by Northwest. So it wasn't in the birds, that's for sure. Hmm. You may get me on this one. Uh, wasn't in Torn Curtain. Frenzy, maybe? Uh, hmm.
Mitch, can I have the lovebirds? They haven't hurt anybody. No, it's not. It's not the
It's not
birds.
the
I'm just.
birds.
I don't know why that line. I don't know why that line popped into my head, or that.
Well, you know the actress who said that line was.
Not Angela Cartwright. It
No,
was
her sister Veronica Cartwright.
her sister, Veronica Cartwright.
Right.
Yes.
Um, you know what, Joe? I don't know. So I don't think it was in North by. There's bathroom scenes in North by Northwest, but there was no flushing toilet.
Well, believe it or not, it was Psycho.
Oh, that's right.
At least
Yes,
that's
in
what.
Psycho. Yes, yes. Okay, right. You're right.
Did he try to flush the blood down or something? That's I don't.
Something. Yeah, I forget.
I tried very hard, and I've been very successful to this moment in time in ever watching. And I know it's been on a number of times on like American movie classics and Turner Classic Movies, and I just refuse to watch that movie. But anyway, but since we're on the subject, what did Alfred Hitchcock use to simulate blood in the movie Psycho?
Well, I know to simulate the stabbing, he used a cassava watermelon. The knife going into into the cassava watermelon to mimic the sound of a knife going into a human body.
Oh, oh,
Um, it's a great, you know, if you haven't seen Psycho, you have to see it at least once. Just think of Mrs. Quinn. Just I don't know. um,
think of Mrs. Quinn in that shower. Ah,
yeah. Um, so I would say,
Little Bear, whoever he is on the chat board, just said, "That's gruesome. Stop it."
yeah. Um, you know what? That I don't know. I don't know.
Hershey's chocolate syrup, believe it or not.
Really? Oh, that's interesting. And I guess some red
I
dye
did.
of some kind.
Yes,
All
I
right. Well,
guess.
you should
Well,
have
but it was
been.
in black and white,
Yes, it's in black
right?
and white.
So, yeah,
That movie would not.
yeah,
Let me tell you, so Psycho in black. Psycho is which is just Hitchcock genius. Um, it's in black and white. It needs to be in black and white. It wouldn't work in color. And Hitchcock had
yeah,
done a number of color films before that. North by Northwest, among others. The Man Who Knew Too Much, Rope, which was back in 19, I think like 1950 or 51. But uh, Psycho would not work in color. And that's another thing. I'm a firm believer that you don't take movies that are that are so brilliantly done and try to do the 2022 version of it, because I think they did. I think they remade somebody remade Psycho not too many years ago.
I've heard that.
I
I
refuse.
heard
I
that. Yeah.
absolutely refuse to. You might refuse to watch the original Psycho. I will. I would never watch the repeat. I have too much respect for Hitchcock's work to ever do that.
Okay. And Kylo Tech hit the chat board. Thank you very much, Kylo. Ha ha. Well, it's always summer in my home country of Guyana. We're right above the equator. And he says, great to see you guys. And he gave us a heart, Joe.
Oh, thank you so
So
much.
there you
Thank you
go.
for hitting super chat. Okay,
Thank you
so
so much, Kylo
so
Tech.
let's straighten out this schedule coming up for the next few days. So tomorrow, Joe and I will be on our regular time at 7:30 Eastern. So we'll add Friday to this at 7:30 Eastern time, and then we will be on it Sunday. Let's shoot for what, 7 o'clock? Does that work for you?
Yeah, 7 o'clock.
Seven
Yeah,
o'clock,
7 o'clock.
because you know.
And if we get done, and if we go an hour, and we get done by 8, then I can flick on up here in New York. We have WBAI, which is a
I
non-commercial radio
right,
station,
I know it.
and I love WBAI only for one reason: that at 8 o'clock on Sunday, it is the golden age of radio with Mac Mead. And on Sunday, I've become addicted. He's been playing Gunsmoke on the radio, not the Gunsmoke that we watched with James Arness on television. There was a Gunsmoke before that on radio. And Joe, you'll never guess who Matt Dillon was on the radio version.
I have no idea who.
William Conrad.
Oh, that, yeah, we've had this conversation. Yeah, we've talked about this before. He did a lot
And of
of
course,
he did a lot of voiceover stuff.
oh, he was all over the radio back
Yeah.
in the 1950s, especially. And a lot of people, when they came out with James Arness on the TV version, they got very upset. They said, "Well, why can't we have Mr. Conrad be Matt Dillon on TV?" And of course, we all remember that he just wouldn't have fit the role.
No,
He had a great voice, but William Conrad was Cannon.
Cannon.
Maybe
Don't
some of
feel
you
bad.
remember.
He had a successful series that ran for a few years on CBS called Cannon.
And then later, Jake and the Fat Man.
And then Jake
And
and
I'll
the
give you
Fat Man. I forgot about that one.
and I'll give you a 3 guesses, and you don't get the first 2. Who played the Fat Man?
Yes, because I have no idea. I have no idea who played Jake.
No, but everybody remembers the Fat Man.
Right.
And it would have been good. You know, it would have been fun since he had such a role in the radio version of Gunsmoke. It would have been. I wonder if they even considered having him make an appearance on the TV version. Not, of course, as Matt Dillon, but either as an outlaw or resident sheriff or some other person. It would have been interesting. And by the way, on the radio version, the part of Doc was played by the same guy who played Floyd the Barber on the Andy Griffith Show.
Yeah. I'm doing a quick Google search here. I just did a quick Google search to see whether he ever played in an episode of Gunsmoke.
On the TV version.
Yeah, and it doesn't come up. He was the original Matt Dillon. That comes up. Written by Madison Miller. There's the Post was written by Madison Miller. Okay.
Yes.
Before James Arness for 20 years. Blah blah blah. That doesn't. It doesn't.
And what's even more interesting, Joe, is that it
doesn't say that he did.
The radio version. The radio version ran until like 1959. The TV version came in like 55. So there were about 2 or 3 years when they were running concurrently. You had Matt Dillon on television, and you had a different Matt Dillon on the radio. Which they could have done back then.
Yes.
You know, radio was dying back in those days. So
and it still is.
Yeah, it still is.
And it still is. All right, and that's it for tonight, folks. Thanks for being here. Hope you had hope you enjoyed the show. and Joe and I will be back tomorrow night at 7:30 Eastern Time. And yes, Frank Riccio, that is correct. Janet Leigh never took. Not only did Janet Leigh never take a shower again, I mean she did bathe, and and got cleaned up on a regular basis. After she saw the shower scene that she starred in. But she also never did another Hitchcock movie after that because Alfred Hitchcock felt that she was so much a part of that movie. She was so important in that movie that that it wouldn't work to use her in any other subsequent Hitchcock vehicle. So she got to work with Hitchcock. She did the movie that went down that was a classic and is a classic and a masterpiece. But she never got to do another Hitchcock movie after that because she was so much connected to the role that she played.
My favorite Janet Leigh movie was a movie which she starred in with her husband back in the early 50s, Houdini. If you ever had a chance to see that movie, that was uh, not exactly you know. For example, in that movie, Houdini's mother called him Harry, and she never called him Harry. His real name was Eric Weiss, and she would call him Erica. But I guess they Americanized the movie, and Janet Leigh played Tony
Mrs.
Curtis's
Mrs. Houdini.
Mrs. Houdini.
Yes.
Yes, Bess.
All
Bess.
right. All right, folks. We will. Joe and I will see you tomorrow. Good night, everybody.
Good night.